The Premier League season is over, which means just one more thing to do, and that's to react to my Premier League table predictions that I did at the start of the year. I will also be reacting to my weekly predictions that I've done across the entire season, as well as giving my goal of game week 38, and I'll also be giving my goal of the season. So without further ado, let's see how bad my predictions are. Start off the video, this is how the point system is going to work. If I predict a team in 20th and they finish in 7th, that is 13 points because there's 13 places between those two positions. And higher the points, the worse. So I need to get as low score as possible. And the reason why I specifically gave an example where I predict a team in 20th and they finish in 7th, the reason for that is because that's exactly what I've done. I put Nottingham Forest in 20th position, but they finished in 7th. So that is 13 points. Oh my gosh, they have proved me wrong. But let's see why I put Nottingham Forest in 20th.
Considering they only finished in 17th and they're being in a relegation battle, I feel like it's time. And if one of the big players get injured on the bench, I don't feel like they've got anyone to replace them. And with the high intensity of the Premier League, injuries to big players will happen. And I don't feel Nottingham Forest will be able to replace them because the bench, in my opinion, is a bit too weak. And the 3 newly promoted sides is an improvement, so that's going to really hit on them. And then they're going to fall down into like 20th position.
At the time, it wasn't exactly a terrible prediction because the 2 previous years, they were in a relegation battle. And in my opinion, their squad depth didn't look good, but I think the main reason why they did so well was because of the signings of Milinkovic, working well with Murillo, the surprising star goalkeeper in Matt Sells, and more importantly, the biggest one, the one I didn't actually factor in, was the manager. Nuno Espirito Santos. His style of play got them where they are, in my opinion. He is a heavy factor of it. But I don't see anyone putting them in 7th at the start of the season. I don't think I saw anyone. But yeah, it is possibly the worst prediction of the video. So surely it only gets better from here. It surely can't get worse than putting Nottingham Forest in last position. But over to 19th, I put Southampton. And this is not a bad prediction whatsoever. I said that because Southampton were the worst promoted side from the Championship out of all 3 of them, that because of that, they would finish lower than the other 2 promoted clubs and finish in the relegation zone, which is quite a logical prediction and it made sense. But what didn't make sense,
feel like they've got a bigger and stronger depth on the bench than Forest. That's why I think they'll finish above them. But I feel like it could be goal difference between Nottingham Forest and Southampton.
That is just wrong altogether. That was a terrible prediction and a terrible opinion, saying that they had better squad depth because of the amount of signings Southampton brought in. Because to be fair, they did sign quite a bit. So at the start of the season, it didn't seem too far from the truth. But I was just completely oblivious to Nuno Espirito Santos on how good his style of play and how effective it would have been. But it's only 1 point added on to the 13 points. So in terms of a placement, it's not a bad prediction. Well, my predictions don't get better, as I put Brentford in 18th position. Let's see what was going through my head and why I actually put them in 18th.
I don't know what I'm doing here. It feels wrong considering they were fighting for Europe a couple of seasons ago. But like I said with Southampton, like I said with Nottingham Forest, they could easily finish in 15th because of the 3 newly promoted sides are way more quality, and considering at times Brentford did look like a Championship side if their big players get injured and the midfield looks a bit naff. And the fullbacks, I'm not a fan of the fullbacks.
I couldn't be more wrong. This has gone absolutely awful at the start of my predictions. The relegation zone I have completely crumbled to pieces. I completely underestimated Brentford. They finished 10th. That's 8 places away. I knew Brian Mbeumo and Yohan Wissa was good, but I didn't realise they were going to have a season where Mbeumo scores 20 goals and Wissa scores 19. And Thomas Frank, he continues to impress. And I can assure you, next year, I'm probably not going to put you in the relegation zone. Nottingham Forest and Brentford that I put in the relegation zone have shone to the stars and absolutely bullied me into the corner on how bad my predictions are. And also, back then, you could never trust me with my predictions. Look at my hair. It is awful. I don't know what I was doing with that hairstyle. It looked like a mop. But I still kind of agree that Brentford might need to strengthen their squad depth and their defence a bit. But other than that, they're good. As we now move over to 17th position, I put Ipswich Town. Oh my gosh. Even though it was only 2 places away from the truth, so that's 2 points, it was still a bad prediction in terms of I said they'll stay up and they got relegated.
They've just been promoted and it's a crazy story. I love the story of Ipswich Town, and they do play attacking football like Vincent Kompany did, but I think this Ipswich side is better than Burnley's side. That's why I think they have a chance.
And as you can see, that did not come true. Ipswich were not better than Burnley. I got that completely wrong. And the same problems that happened with Burnley kind of happened to Ipswich in a way. Really open defence while trying to be really attacking. And earlier when I showed you a clip of me saying that the 3 promoted sides had more quality than the previous 3 promoted sides, well, I was completely wrong with that. And that was actually one of my reasons why Ipswich would finish above Brentford, because it was going to be harder for Brentford to play the 3 newly promoted sides because they were better than the previous 3 promoted sides, which made sense at the time, but knowing how bad the 3 promoted sides did, yeah, it was an awful prediction. Also, I am still confused how Ipswich didn't do better, with the likes of Liam Delap up front, which he did very well in the Premier League, and the likes of Hutchinson. He was brilliant. And they had so many other great players. Then they brought in Enciso. In my opinion, their transfer market went fantastic. They had a great manager, great keeper, great striker. Honestly, I think they're structured to get straight away promoted from the Championship back up to the Premier League. I really am confident in saying that, because I am really surprised how they didn't do better, because at times against some teams they looked like they could match the Premier League level. But as the season went on, it got worse and worse. And the next one is Leicester City. I put them in 16th. So that's another 2 points added. And I got them completely wrong.
And I have heard about all the points deduction and everything. If they didn't have a points deduction, they could finish in 13th. I think their squad is by far the best out of the 3 promoted sides. And I think overall, in terms of depth and everything, it is better than Brentford's. I'm confident in saying that. And I think it's an absolute great side. And there's got so many Premier League improvements. I mean, Wilfred Ndidi, of all players, is still there. Steve Cooper coming in. He's done it with Nottingham Forest, which this Leicester side is definitely better than Nottingham Forest side, in my opinion. I think 100% Leicester City could stay up.
First of all, they didn't actually get deducted points. So if I knew that at the time, I would have put them 13th, as you heard. That would have been even worse. And I said they had loads of Premier League proven players. In my opinion, I look back at it and it's definitely true. They did. And I was very confused with a great side that they had, how they did so bad. Well, maybe they shouldn't have sacked Steve Cooper, because Steve Cooper had them in 16th, where I predicted them, and they sacked Steve Cooper even though they were in a fine position. And then Ruben van Nistelrooy came in and Leicester City got worse. But still, why did they sack Steve Cooper? I don't understand. In 15th position, I put Wolverhampton Wanderers. And you know what? This was not a bad prediction. I said they'll be in a relegation battle, and they were for quite a bit. And I said they were going to stay up. And this only gives me 1 point. And this is the reasoning why.
Their squad has decreased in quality because of the loss of Max Kilman, Wolves' best defender, and the loss of Pedro Neto. In my opinion, he was absolutely world class, but I would not be surprised if they go down. I just still feel like they've got a decent side. They'll stay up in 15th, but they will fall down a place because of some huge losses and some bad performance at the end of last season.
I think Wolves' prediction, I could have easily got 0 points from that prediction. I'm quite happy with that one. And it's very rare so far that I'm happy with a prediction. But in terms of the future for Wolverhampton Wanderers, they don't have Mateus Cunha anymore. He's gone over to Manchester United. But to be honest, when Vitor Pereira came in, Cunha was injured for quite a long period. And Wolves were still winning without him. So they have proven they don't need him, but it is going to be a big loss. And they are probably still wanting to replace him. And I would still say they are one of the weaker sides in the Premier League. And then 14th, I put Fulham. And thinking about it, it's quite a bad prediction, But, in my opinion, throughout a lot of the season, from mid-table all the way up to third position, it was really close. So Fulham, hypothetically, wasn't too far off of 14th. But overall, thinking about it, as the season progressed, you could kind of see slowly but surely teams separated from the bottom half of the table and the higher half of the table. It started to separate, but for a lot of the season, it was quite close. I wouldn't say it's a great prediction, but it's okay. But this is why I said it.
But I think the loss of Palhina, the loss of Adebayo is huge in my opinion.
Yeah, I said it because they lost a few players, and overall I did think that they lost a bit of quality, but not enough quality to finish lower down the table. So I could see where I came from. But over to 13th position, I put Everton. Yes! Come on! My first bang-on prediction. I got them exactly where they finished. I mean, I need to celebrate this moment because it's very rare in my predictions so far that I got one spot on. Come on.
I think they'll stay up comfortably. I've seen some people putting them in a relegation battle, but I just cannot see it. Everton's defence is too good. Jared Banthwaite and Tawaski. Tawaski got the most blocks in the Premier League last year and partnered up fantastically with Jared Banthwaite. Remember, Jordan Pickford's an absolute solid keeper, and Mikalenko in left back, he was outstanding as well. I know they've lost Onana in the middle, but they've got James Garner and Decore still in there. Goal scoring is the problem. That's why everyone thinks they're going to get relegated. Everton have got plenty of strikers that they can mess around with and find a way around. And with Sean Dyche,
yeah, everything I said there made sense, and I was right. I was right with everything there. Unfortunately, I was right about Jordan Pickford, because I definitely know that I was right with Jordan Pickford, especially on the final day when Newcastle lost to Everton. But there's, you know, Jordan Pickford made it very hard for Newcastle to score. But overall, Newcastle did not deserve that game. Everton deserved to win it. It was not up to scratch for Newcastle level. But guess what? Newcastle still hit Champions League football. So I'm not complaining that Newcastle lost against Everton. But yeah, I also did then go on and say Sean Dyche, as you saw. And that's because I was saying with Sean Dyche, it's going to work perfectly. But as you know, it wasn't working perfectly with Sean Dyche. David Moyes had to come in, so that prediction wasn't the best in terms of the manager prediction, but let me have it. 13th position, I predicted, and 13th they finished. So it's a good prediction. And in 12th position, I put Brighton and Hove Albion. It's not too shabby considering in the table, 12th to 8th position where Brighton was, it was quite close and quite compact. But this is what I had to say about it.
I don't see Brighton finishing in the relegation zone. I don't see them finishing in the bottom six. Some people do have them in the bottom six, and I can see why. But the recruitment is always good. Mitoma's returning from injury. Ferguson's returning from injury. I think really I look at it and probably the defence is the worst part. But I think the side has weakened since they finished in like the top six.
I think those are fair points that I made. At the time, I could have put them anywhere between 12th and 10th. So I don't think it's a terrible prediction considering how close it was and how weird this Premier League season has been. But that does still give me 4 points, which isn't the best. It's definitely better than some of my predictions. But moving over to 11th position, I put AFC Bournemouth. And well, in my opinion, it was quite self-explanatory to put them in a decently comfortable mid-table position. This is what I had to say about it.
Iriola, Bournemouth played fantastic last year. Proved me wrong. I said they were going to finish in the relegation zone, and they didn't. Iriola did a fantastic job.
Yeah, not much more to say. I thought they were fantastic last season. They still had a good squad going into this season, but probably not as good of a squad as all the teams in like the top 6 or top 7. But they still had just a decent squad. And I do get 2 points because they actually finished in 9th. So I wasn't really far off at all. And if we're going based on all my other predictions so far, it's not a bad prediction. And they're even very close to getting European football. But moving over to 10th position, I put Crystal Palace. And you know what? I don't think it was a bad prediction. I didn't say they would win a trophy, and I'm really happy they did. And this is what I had to say about Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace, at the end of last season, they're the best team in the Premier League, it seemed. Battering Aston Villa 5-0. Obviously, the trio in Michael Olise, Eze, Mateta, and then obviously Mark Gay being the best England player at Euro 2024 Everyone knows how good Mark Gay is. Crystal Palace have a great core. It's fantastic.
I think everything I said there was quite good. I think the reason why I didn't put them any higher than 10th, especially after what a great season they had at the end of the 23-24 season, was because of the departure of Michael Elise, and because I still felt like their team overall was not as good as the teams above. And well, I actually overestimated them by 2 places. But in 9th position, I put West Ham United. This one is a bad prediction. It is only 5 points away from the truth. They finish in 14th, but I said they finish in 9th. And this is why I put them in such a high position.
The defence was a real problem last year, but now with Max Kilman, the best centre-back at Wolves, coming in for a high price of around £40 million, he's definitely going to help them, because West Ham conceded over 70 goals despite finishing in 9th position last year. I'm putting them in the same position. They're going to have another good season, and they don't have any European football either, so I don't see them dropping off. Their side has increased in quality.
So it looks like, based on that, I was really impressed with their transfer window. In my opinion, I thought their transfers were going really well. I thought the defence would improve, but really the defence only improved when Graham Potter came in. And the fact that they didn't have European football and they proved to finish in 9th the previous year, I felt like 9th wasn't a bad prediction. And they had so many quality players with a great transfer window. But I think the problem had to have been maybe the striker position. It's very disappointing not to see someone like Füllkrug play. If he was fit all season, more goals will happen. And you had injuries to the likes of Jarrod Bowen partway through the season. So many other teams are now close in quality overall. And overall, I felt like Lopetegui was also another reason for West Ham's downfall. And that's why he got sacked. And I feel like Graham Potter coming in did improve a bit, like I said, with the defence. But overall, I feel like he needs an entire summer to actually get West Ham where he wants West Ham. And in 8th position, I put Manchester United. One of those weird teams this season, which is crazy. Let's just see what I said about them.
Look at last season. Look how dreadful it was. So many unconvincing wins. In my opinion, I think they've done well in the transfer market. Yoro coming in and Xerxes. But another reason why I think they will finish in 8th is because of those transfers. Yes, they are good, but Yoro's injured for the first 3 months. And Xerxes, Erik ten Hag said he won't be straight away in the starting 11. It'll take him a few weeks to get back to it.
Okay, the reason why I put them in 8th, as you can see, was because I didn't feel like they were any different to the previous year. I thought their season was terrible before this season, so I thought it's going to continue. I don't see them getting out of the shell of terribleness. But also, as you can see, I wasn't impressed with their transfers because they brought in 2 players which wasn't even going to start off the season. And overall, I didn't think any of their transfers was properly going to improve Man United. And nothing felt like it was going to improve. And plus, I didn't have trust in Erik ten Hag to be good enough at Man United. And, well, I was right in that sense. They did carry on being terrible. So that is actually 7 points. That is an awful prediction. But hang on. Comparing it to a lot of other people, it was probably not a terrible prediction because I actually put them outside the top 7 when a lot of people put them inside the top 7. So I don't think it was terrible compared to the people I watched. And when Ruben Amorim came in, we did see some tweaks and we did see some changes. And now and again, Man United look good, but his system hasn't really worked with Man United. But maybe throughout the summer, training the current players on this system, if he really wants the system to work, and throughout the summer, signing loads of new players, because they really have to, and selling loads of players, because they really have to, maybe that means Man United can get back maybe to a reasonable 10th place next year. But what's really bad is this is another thing I said about Man United.
But also, I think they'll win the Europa League. I mean, almost every year they always win a trophy.
That could have been right if they beat Spuds. But you know what? I don't really care that I got that wrong because I actually prefer Spuds winning that trophy. Because as I said, Man United always win a trophy. And I'm a fan of the underdog. But I do have to actually say thank you to Man United for winning against Aston Villa, even though I felt like a couple of refereeing decisions were pretty poor in that game between Man United and Aston Villa. But I'm not complaining as a Newcastle fan. It means Newcastle can get Champions League football while performing terrible at the end of the season. Thank you, Man United. You're an absolute lifesaver. Especially after robbing us off of European football last year. you've kind of redeemed yourself by giving us Champions League football. And in 7th place, I put Aston Villa, which wasn't too bad of a prediction. That's only 1 point gained. And let's have a look at what I thought of it.
There's a reason why I've got them above Manchester United, because I just feel like Unai Emery is a fantastic manager and a better manager than Erik ten Hag. I think everyone can probably say that in recent time, but I think the fall-off will be from the Champions League, the new format where I think they have to minimum play 8 games, and there's like 4 more teams in the Champions League, and the Champions League is a different level to the Conference League. It's going to be quite hard.
I don't think it's a bad prediction. I was right that they will finish above Man United, that they had a better manager than Man United, but I also felt like I was right about the Champions League tiredness. They're falling off just slightly because of the Champions League throughout the season. But if you think about it, I felt like when it got to the knockout stages of the Champions League, it didn't affect them. They were so determined that the tiredness did not affect them, and they just stomped through the Champions League, stomped through the Premier League with great form. But at the end of it, they couldn't win against PSG. It was very close, but they couldn't. So I felt like it wasn't a bad prediction. I felt like I did pretty good there. Over to 6th position, it is Tottenham Hotspur. My gosh, that's gotten me 11 points. But no one is predicting them in 17th. If I predicted Man United in 15th and Tottenham in 17th, people would think I know nothing about football. But yeah, this is what I said about Tottenham.
And I think it will be a place fall-off, purely because I feel like Newcastle coming back, like I said with Aston Villa, is going to push them down a place. And the reason why I don't think they'll be able to improve is because their signings of Archie Gray and Bergvall are good for the future, and Archie Gray had a fantastic season with Leeds United, but it's his first season's inexperience.
So the reason why I didn't want to put them any higher was because I felt like their signings weren't good enough, and they were bringing in good young players. I just didn't think they were properly ready to get Tottenham to the next stage. Which I was right, they didn't get them to the next stage, but Tottenham as a whole couldn't even finish in top 6. Would you say Tottenham Hotspur had a better season than Arsenal, who finished in 2nd? Because Arsenal got no trophies, got Champions League football. Tottenham got Champions League football and they're European champions. So that sounds like they've had a better season. And Ange Postecoglou, obviously what he said that he always wins stuff in the 2nd season, I mean, that was completely true. And I think he was so determined to make what he said true that he put all his eggs into one basket, and it was the Europa League basket. He didn't care how he played in that final against Man United. He parked the bus and he brought Tottenham a trophy and kept them in the Premier League. And they've got Champions League football. I think Ange Postecoglou should stay. And another thing is, I wasn't expecting them to have as many injuries. I felt like it would have been a different story if they didn't get as many injuries partway through the season. But when the injuries returned, they went on a bit of a good run, but then they kind of stopped because they only cared about the Europa League, nothing else. In 5th position, I put Chelsea. Not a bad prediction. 1 point away from where they actually finished.
Chelsea, their side is world class. That's why I've got them above Tottenham, Manchester United and Aston Villa, because their side is so good. Cole Palmer, 22 goals, 11 assists, 33 goal contributions, young player of the season last year. He's probably in the top 10 players in the world at the moment. He's such a young star. It's a young, promising side, not just Cole Palmer. And Kuka's going to be able to start the season without injuries, and they're going to finally have that goal scorer. Nicholas Jackson behind him, which at times looks promising.
Well, I was practically spot on, and I could have easily been spot on the last day. And overall, Chelsea, what a great season. I was right about you having enough squad depth to cope with the Conference League and the Premier League, because you got Champions League football and you won the damn Conference League. I'm pretty sure you've won every single European competition there is to have. So you're really a European giant, you could say. But I do have to admit, quite large parts of the season, I thought you weren't performing your best. Especially when Cole Palmer dipped in form and Nicholas Jackson got injured. So I don't think it's been a clean, smooth run to 4th place. It's definitely been a bit of a struggle at times, but overall, you came through and you completely deserved it against Real Betis. And I'm happy with that prediction. And in 4th position, that trophy over there, just to remind you all, Newcastle won it. I'm so chuffed. What a season. Even though Newcastle lost the last game of the season, which is never good, Newcastle still got Champions League football and won a trophy.
I mean, look at it. No European distraction whatsoever. That is superb. And if we compare this squad to the 22-23 squad where Newcastle finished in 4th, getting loads of points. It's the same, plus more.
Yeah, that's true. And overall was a fantastic season. And I was only 1 point off, 1 place off. I feel like Lewis Hall had to be the best left back in the Premier League. I don't care what any of you say. I'm certain of it. I know he got injured at the end of the season, but other than that, he got man of the match so many times for me in multiple games. He was brilliant. And he was probably my player of the season alongside Sandro Tonali, alongside Dan Burn. I mean, the story of Dan Burn is brilliant. Oh, and Arsenal, get your grubby hands off of Alexander Isak, because he is staying at Newcastle United. He's not going nowhere. He has been brilliant all season. Third position, I put Liverpool. You might be thinking you didn't put them first, and do you know what really annoys me? Is that 2 seasons back to back before this season, I put Liverpool first. Back to back. Why didn't I do it again? Why? Is it the one time I don't go for Liverpool to win the league title, they win the league title? It is honestly so annoying. But you know what? It wasn't a bad prediction in terms of what I said, which I'll show you in a bit, but also the fact that a lot of people said that they will fall off outside the top 4. Some people I watched did say that. Not all, but some people did. So let's see why I put them in third and why I didn't think they would fall off.
Clippity Clop being the big news. He went and Arne Slot came in. And you know what? Arne Slot also has the high intensity attacking aggressive football that Klopp does. So already I don't think Liverpool will fall off because Klopp's football is continuing under Arne Slot.
What I said on how and why they wouldn't fall off was exactly what happened. So that was a good prediction, and I was only 2 places off. But the reason why I didn't think they'll straight away finish first was because I felt like it would have taken time with Arne Slot, and because last season Man City and Arsenal finished above them, and I thought they still had a better side than Liverpool. And that's why I'm decently happy on what I said about it, but 2 points gained from that prediction. And then second and first, Manchester City in second, Arsenal first. So that is 1 point for the Man City prediction and 1 point for the Arsenal prediction. Top 3, I got bang on, which was okay, but not in the right order. But this is why I put Arsenal above Man City.
So Man City's been challenged by Aston Villa, been challenged by Arsenal, been challenged by Liverpool. So many teams are now challenging, and it's more than normal last season. But it looks like Man City are slowly but surely getting challenged by different teams. Teams are finding out how to beat Man City last season more than ever.
I was right about that. That was another thing that I said that was right, but not on the same scale as it actually was in real life. They didn't fall off by 1. They fell off by 2. But overall, Man City did fall off. I think the worst part of it was because of all the injuries to Man City. To adapt without having Rodri in that system was hard. To adapt to not having all those players was quite hard. And that was the worst part of the season when they had all the injuries. But then they slowly, as the season went on, they got better and better.
But also the likes of Kevin De Bruyne didn't live up to his normal level, I would say. He was still good at times in the Premier League, but he was injured for quite long periods, and he wasn't as fit as his normal self. But he'll still go down as one of the best central attacking midfielders in the Premier League. Also, the likes of Erling Haaland being injured and not scoring as much is probably got something to do with it. Also, I felt like Pep Guardiola wasn't adapting his tactics against some teams. So I feel like sometimes, not all the time, because Pep Guardiola still does a good job of his tactics, but sometimes maybe adapting the tactics would be key for Man City being a bit more consistent throughout the season. And I felt like the reason why you didn't get to first place, Arsenal, I know it's going to sound boring, I felt like you needed a striker. Kai Havertz was injured throughout the majority of the season. Saka was also injured throughout the majority of the season. So your 2 goal-scoring players were injured, and a lot of attackers got injured as well. Also because Liverpool was just better than ever. And also you had distraction from the Champions League, which never helped. But overall, Arsenal, I think you're going to be in a title race again next year. But it feels like you're never going to win anything at this rate. Even Tottenham won something in recent time, so you're going to have to win something soon. But I was wrong about Arsenal winning the title. Well done, Liverpool. Mohamed Salah is truly the Egyptian god, and he got golden boot, so surely he has to be the Premier League
God. But before moving on to my total points for my season predictions, let's see how I actually did for my previous seasons of predicting the Premier League. And my best year was last year with 50 points. And my worst season being the 22/23 season with an awful 84 points. Let's hope I don't repeat it. And this season, drumroll please, I have got 68 points. Oh dear. And I only got one correct placement, and that was obviously Everton. So it ranks as my 4th best season for predicting the Premier League table. So a bit of a naff season, you could say. But also, I have predicted every single week of the Premier League. And in week 38 predictions, I got a total of 4 points out of 20 points. In other words, terrible. In terms of my previous years, for my weekly predictions, I only have the last 2 seasons on record on how many points I got. In the 22/23 season, I got 211 points. Then last season, I got 225 points. And this season, can I beat it? Well, I got 197 points. Yeah, that last week did not do me justice. And overall, it was terrible at predicting weekly Premier League predictions. So not a good season at all at predicting. But moving over to goal of week 38, I'm going to give it to Diego Gomez. A great curve shot to the top right corner. Brilliant for Brighton. But for my goal of the season, I have picked 2 contestants. John Duran's goal against Everton in the 3-2 comeback that Aston Villa made, and Omar Marmoush's goal against Bournemouth in the 3-1 victory towards Man City, which was quite recent. I really want to give both of them goal of the season, but I'm gonna have to pick one. But I'm picking Omar Marmoush's goal. I mean, both of these goals are absolute rocket goals from outside the box. But for me, I like the sound of a shot hitting the post, then the netting. And I also thought Omar Marmoush's goal was slightly more top corner than John Duran's goal. But to be honest, there's literally barely anything in it. So give your goal of the season in the comments below. It doesn't have to be out of those 2, it could be any. Also, tell me what you think of my predictions. And in summary, this has been one of the weirdest seasons in the Premier League ever. And at times it has been boring. Not all the time, but sometimes it has been boring, as the relegation battle was over quicker than normal. And same goes for the title race. Liverpool had it all wrapped up earlier than normal as well. But as a Newcastle United fan, it has been probably my favourite season ever. And being a fan of the underdogs, it's also been one of my favourite seasons ever. Newcastle United, Spuds, and Crystal Palace winning a trophy. Absolutely love it. But hopefully, you are going to be having a lovely day today. And next season's Premier League predictions is going to be changed up quite a bit to be even better. So for now, toodle pip.